Alisa was a girl who drew attention wherever she went. A breathtaking student, everyone at school admired her. One day, a boy, known as the biggest heartthrob in school, gathered the courage to confess his love to her, inviting her on a date. But Alisa, with a firm look, refused right away, leaving the poor guy speechless. To top it off, she even pointed out that the shiny earring he was wearing was against school rules, which shocked everyone. Not even the greatest womanizer could win over Alisa. When she entered the classroom, Alisa ran into Kuz, who was napping at his desk. Without hesitation, she sat in his seat, making the boy crash to the floor with a thud. "Stayed up all night watching anime again, Kuzi?" she asked, half teasing. Kuze, still rubbing his eyes, mumbled that he had stayed up late chatting with some anime-addicted friends online. Alisa rolled her eyes and snapped, "You dummy!" But when she saw him yawning, she slipped out a compliment in Russian, calling him cute. Kuzi, not understanding a thing, just looked puzzled. Suddenly, Kuzi realized he had forgotten his textbook. A little embarrassed, he asked to share Alisa's book, and although she huffed, she eventually agreed. During class, Kuzi couldn't resist and started dozing off again. Annoyed, Alisa poked him with her pen, making him squeak. The teacher, thinking Kuze wanted to speak, called on him to stand up and answer. Alisa quickly whispered an answer, but unfortunately for Kuze, it was wrong. When Alisa answered correctly right after, the teacher scolded Kuze, who blamed her. Seeing his outraged face, Alisa laughed and, in Russian, called him cute again, leaving Kuz even more confused. Disguising, she said she had just called him a dummy. But Kuze's secret was that, since he was little, he had a Russian neighbor who taught him some of the language. He understood what Alisa was saying, but pretended not to avoid embarrassment. In the middle of class, Alisa caught Kuze using his phone. "That's against the rules!" she scolded, snatching the phone from his hand. Curious, she discovered that Kuze had won a prize in a game, and snooping further, noticed he liked characters with platinum blonde hair. Handing the phone back, she teased him in Russian. "I also have platinum blonde hair, you know." Kuze turned red as a beet, and Alisa, laughing, said she was just calling him a gaming addict. At lunchtime, Kuze was with his best friends, Takeshi and Hikaru, in the cafeteria. Takeshi, all excited, shouted, "I want to become a stylish guy like the school's heartthrob." At that moment, Alisa arrived with the student council members, and everyone's eyes turned to Maria, who was at her side. Maria was just as dazzling as Alisa, but already had a boyfriend, which left admirers heartbroken. Takeshi, jealous of Kuze for being so close to Alisa, grumbled that she always seemed irritated with him. But to everyone's surprise, Yuki, the friendliest girl in school, came over and asked if she could sit with Kuze. Takeshi was over the moon. Yuki noticed that Kuze had also ordered ramen, just like her, and struck up a conversation about how much she loved the dish, though she thought it lacked a spicy kick. Alisa, seeing the two talking so comfortably, felt a pang of jealousy. To her surprise, she found out that Kuz and Yuki had been childhood friends. Yuki, all smiles, said she also wanted to be friends with Alisa. Meanwhile, Takeshi and Hikaru finished eating and left, leaving Kuze and Yuki alone. Yuki took the opportunity to invite Kuze to the student council, reminding him that he had been vice president in middle school. Alisa, increasingly annoyed, overheard Yuki praising Kuze's reliability, which made her even more jealous. Kuze awkwardly retorted, "You're a girl too, Alisa." That caught her off guard, but strangely put her in a good mood, and she left with a smirk. While tidying up the classroom alone after class, Kuze remembered his childhood, when he played with a Russian girl who taught him basic phrases in her language. He even studied Russian to impress her, but over time forgot her name. When Alisa arrived in the classroom, she was surprised to see Kuze there so early. Then she noticed her socks were soaking wet. A truck had splashed water on her in the street. Luckily, she had a spare pair. Without hesitation, Alisa began changing socks in front of Kuze, who turned redder than ever. Laughing at his expression, she half-jokingly asked Kuze to grab the socks from her locker and, believe it or not, put them on her. Completely flustered, Kuze obeyed, but accidentally brushed against Alisa's thigh. Embarrassed, she gave him a light kick and jokingly said it was a reward for them both. Thinking she was mad, Kuze chased after her to apologize. Alisa, laughing, said she wasn't upset and even apologized for kicking him. Suddenly, Alisa realized that while changing her socks, Kuze had accidentally seen her underwear. Her face burning with embarrassment, she started slapping him lightly and ran off awkwardly. Kuze, not fully understanding what was happening, ran after her. After a marathon through the school hallways, they both stopped, panting and out of breath. Trying to make amends, Kuz offered Alisa a glass of water, which she accepted, still flustered. On impulse, she asked in Russian with a shy smile, Want to take a sip? Kuz, realizing it would be an indirect kiss, pretended not to understand, keeping the secret that he knew some Russian. The next morning, Yuki called Kuze, asking him to meet her. Elisa, nearby, felt a pang of jealousy seeing how close they were. In fact, Yuki needed Kuze's help to organize the student council's storage room. While they arranged the items, Yuki asked Kuze to grab a box of board games, explaining it would be used at the council's birthday party. Elisa, increasingly annoyed, muttered in Russian for Kuze to pay attention to her, making him blush with embarrassment. When they finished organizing, the council president, Kanzaki, appeared. He was an impressive guy, with a presence that filled the room. Thanking them for their help, Kanzaki invited Kuze to dinner, but Kuze politely declined. Yuki, however, revealed that Kuze didn't have food at home, surprising Kanzaki. She explained that as childhood friends, she knew that. In the end, they all ended up going to a restaurant together. At dinner, Yuki couldn't stop praising Kuze to Kanzaki, suggesting he would be perfect for the student council, maybe even to run for president. Kuze firmly refused the idea. Kanzaki then mentioned that Elisa would also be a candidate for president next year. After eating, Kuze and Elisa went home together, but she still seemed upset. Wanting to avoid more confusion, Elisa said she'd go ahead and left Kuze behind. Arriving home, Kuze found his younger sister, Yuki, reading a manga. With a mischievous smile, she asked if he had walked Elisa home. Annoyed, Kuze scolded her for always pretending to be his childhood friend. Yuki, laughing, shot back, "Siblings are childhood friends too, you know." She confessed she was just reenacting a scene from the manga she was reading, leaving Kuze speechless. The next morning, Yuki woke Kuze up early, much to his despair. Even grumbling, he gave in, and the two went shopping together. Kuze was shocked by the high clothing prices, but something left him even more flustered. He spotted Elisa following them from a distance. Before he could decide what to do, Yuki ran up to her, greeting her excitedly. Caught red-handed, Elisa blushed and pretended the encounter was a coincidence. It turned out she was also there to buy clothes. Yuki, all cheerful, invited Elisa to lunch with them, surprising Kuze. She wanted to take them to a super spicy ramen restaurant, and Kuze, knowing how extreme the spiciness was, tried to convince Elisa not to go. But stubborn as always, Elisa insisted. When they arrived at the Hell Ramen, the menu was a fiery challenge. Elisa, unsure what to order, let Kuze choose a lighter dish for her. Suddenly, she noticed that Yuki was dressed in a somewhat masculine style. Laughing, Yuki said she had grabbed clothes from Kuze's closet after invading his bed that morning, which made Elisa feel a wave of jealousy. When the ramen arrived covered in chili peppers, Elisa turned pale, but determined not to lose to Yuki, she began eating. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to pretend everything was fine. Teasing, Yuki offered her extra chili powder. Kuze tried to intervene, but proud Elisa accepted the challenge. After one bite, she couldn't take it anymore and nearly fainted from the heat. Seeing her state, Kuze rushed to buy her ice cream, which brought a relieved smile to Elisa's face. While eating the ice cream, Kuze realized how determined Elisa was to become student council president. By the rules, she needed a vice president but hadn't chosen anyone yet. In Russian, Elisa let slip that she'd like Kuze to be her vice, but he hesitated, remembering a past election when a classmate cried after losing to him. Even so, when Elisa asked him to accompany her shopping for clothes, Kuze accepted, realizing she didn't have many friends for that. At the mall, Elisa tried on several outfits, waiting for Kuze's critique. To her surprise, he complimented her, saying she looked cute. Elisa, shy, didn't expect that and felt embarrassed. Thinking Kuze praised Yuki the same way, she felt jealous and decided to try on a more casual, slightly masculine look. Kuze, however, kept complimenting her, saying she looked cute no matter what. Elisa, increasingly happy, changed into another outfit, and Kuze's compliments didn't stop, leaving her radiant. Then, she decided to be bold, wearing a more sensual look, completely surprising Kuze. Suddenly, Yuki arrived at the mall, eyes widening at Elisa's daring outfit. "Wow, Elisa, that's brave," she said, embarrassed, wanting to hide. Elisa, still stunned by her own boldness, was left speechless. Kuze and Yuki said their goodbyes to leave, leaving Elisa confused as she watched them go out together. Why are they going home together? She thought, with a mix of jealousy and curiosity. When she got home, Elisa was surprised by Maria, her older sister, who hugged her warmly. Noticing Elisa's somewhat downcast look, Maria asked what was going on. Elisa vented about the day with Kuze and Yuki, and Maria, attentive, noticed that Kuze's name stirred her sister's emotions. With a mischievous smile, she asked, "You like Kuze, don't you?" Elisa, blushing, denied it right away. "We're just friends." But Maria, who knew her sister like no one else, saw that she was lying. Elisa never tolerated careless people, so why did she care so much about Kuze? 6 years ago, in Russia, Elisa had an experience that marked her life. Her class needed to do a group project researching local shops, and Elisa was super excited, dreaming of winning first place. But her classmates forgot the plan, and the group ended up in last place. Furious at their irresponsibility, Elisa was so upset that she decided never to trust anyone else to get things done. When she moved to Japan, she threw herself into her studies, always getting top grades and earning everyone's admiration. It was during this time that Elisa met Kuze. One day, when she entered the classroom, she saw a student sleeping and woke him with a poke. It was Kuze, who immediately recognized her as the new transfer student. They started talking, and Elisa couldn't take her eyes off him, intrigued by his lazy and unmotivated attitude in such a competitive school. During the preparations for the school's cultural festival, Elisa found herself alone, sewing costumes and pricking her fingers with needles, feeling the same loneliness as before. Suddenly, Kuze showed up. He noticed that everyone else had already left, except Elisa, who kept working. "Relax, I called the sewing club to help. You can go home, you don't need to kill yourself doing it alone," he said. Surprised, Elisa replied that she always gave her best and didn't understand why others didn't put in the same effort. Kuze, with a calm tone, answered, "You're putting energy in the wrong place. Nobody does everything alone. The point is to motivate everyone to work together." He acknowledged her effort, and although confused, Elisa agreed to go home. The next day, Elisa was delighted to see everyone excited, working together for the festival. In the end, they won first place. At night, while the others danced, Kuze found Elisa alone. "Aren't you going to dance?" he asked. Elisa confessed that she had turned down all invitations. Kuze laughed. "That's why they call you the Lonely Princess." With a smile, Elisa thanked him, saying that without him, she wouldn't have realized that doing everything alone took the fun out of the festival. Wanting to give back, Kuze remembered that in Russia, it's common to use affectionate nicknames. "I'll call you Aliyah, it sounds cooler," he said, with a sparkle in his eyes. Before other boys could invite her to dance, Kuze took Elisa's hand and led her to the floor, making her heart race. Back in the present, Maria smiled, realizing Elisa was in love with Kuze, even though she insisted they were just friends. "Friends become lovers, you know," Maria teased, pulling out an old picture of Sayaka, her childhood friend who saved her from a dog attack. Elisa, indifferent, rolled her eyes. The next morning, Kuze was called to the student council to help Maria with shopping. She introduced herself as Elisa's sister and suggested he call her Masha, leaving Kuze flustered. Suddenly, Maria stared at him, finding him familiar. "What's your name?" she asked. When she heard Masachika, her eyes widened, convinced Kuze was her childhood friend. She tried to speak to him in Russian, but Kuze, clever, pretended not to understand. At the mall, Maria saw a stuffed cat that reminded her of Elisa and was enchanted, deciding to buy it to represent the student council. Kuze found it strange but let it go. Then, they went to a tea shop, and Maria got super excited, while Kuze didn't understand a thing about the subject. Suddenly, he grew quiet, remembering his parents who had separated. He went to live with his father, while Yuki stayed with their mother. Noticing his sadness, Maria hugged him affectionately, but accidentally spilled a cup of hot tea on Kuze, who jumped. Embarrassed, she apologized. Back at the council, Kenzaki questioned the stuffed cat, but was relieved to see that Kuze had brought all the necessary supplies. He tried once again to convince Kuze to join the council, but Kuze refused. "I was vice president in middle school, it's not my style," he explained. Kenzaki, laughing, confessed that he only became president to impress a girl named Chisaki. He showed an old photo, revealing that he was much chubbier 3 years ago, leaving Kuze speechless. Chisaki, the vice president of the student council, was the one who convinced Kenzaki to work so hard to become president. Maria also joined the council at Chisaki's invitation. Kenzaki, seeing Kuze's potential, suggested he could become vice president and help someone shine in leadership. This made Kuze remember when, in elementary school, he helped Yuki become student council president. "I'll think about it," Kuze replied, somewhat hesitant. Suddenly, he realized Elisa wasn't around. Kenzaki explained she was mediating a fight between the baseball and soccer clubs, who were disputing use of the school field. Concerned, Kuze decided to go there to see if he could help. The situation with Elisa was chaos. The two clubs were at a standstill, with neither side giving in. Elisa, desperate, tried to calm things down, but no one listened. In a moment of despair, she shouted in Russian, "Somebody help me!" That's when Kuze appeared, leaving her surprised. He had heard the commotion from afar and, realizing how hard it was for Elisa to handle it alone, decided to step in. Introducing himself as the student council secretary, Kuzi proposed a solution. The baseball club would use the area near the river, and in return, the soccer club would support them. Knowing that the soccer club manager was dating the baseball captain, Kuze bet she would convince the team, who would be excited with the girl's support. The idea worked, and both sides agreed, resolving the conflict. Elisa was impressed. Kuze apologized for interfering without permission, but Elisa, still surprised, realized that he had planned everything based on the relationship between the club leaders. At that moment, Kenzaki appeared with a sly smile, as if he knew Kuze would rush to help Elisa. It was all part of his plan. Seeing Kuze's skill, Kenzaki insisted that he join the council, and this time, Kuze agreed, to the president's joy. As they walked back together, Elisa asked hesitantly, "Do you really want to join the council?" She thought Kuz was there to help Yuki become president, and the idea of competing with him made her nervous. Kuze, with a firm look, replied, "I'll help you become president, Elisa. You won't be alone. I support you." His words touched Elisa's heart, and emotional, she squeezed his hand and, on impulse, said in Russian, "I love you." Kuze, heart racing, remembered the Russian girl from his childhood, but Elisa's firmer grip brought him back. She, realizing he might be thinking of someone else, probably Yuki, grew furious and slapped his face. Regretting it instantly, Elisa realized the slap was too hard and, impulsively, kissed Kuz's cheek to apologize, leaving him stunned. Embarrassed for saying "I love you" in Russian and kissing him, she imagined a scene where she confessed her feelings and was rejected, which made her blush even more. At that moment, Maria arrived, showing the stuffed cat she bought and praising Kuzi. "He's a good guy, right, Elisa? That's why you like him," she teased. Stubborn, Elisa insisted they were just friends, but Maria, laughing, warned, "If you don't hurry, another girl will steal him." Elisa, confused, didn't know how to react. Meanwhile, Kuze, still processing everything, thought about how much Elisa seemed affected by him. But remembering his parents' fights, he hesitated to believe in love. When he got home, Kuzi caught Yuki coming out of the bath and screaming, as if it were an accident. He quickly realized it was another one of her acts, inspired by the manga she read. "You ruined my mood, Yuki," he complained, leaving her shocked. Yuki then learned that Kuzi had joined the council and was going to help Elisa become president. "Seriously, you chose Elisa? She's more interesting than me," she teased, laughing. Yuki kept mocking, insinuating that Kuze only wanted to help Elisa because of her charm, leaving him embarrassed. Then, she asked Kuz to brush her hair, but when she saw how serious he was about helping Elisa, she decided to challenge him. "If you get tired of her, come back to me, okay?" She left laughing. But deep down, she realized Kuz had found someone who motivated him, although she didn't intend to give up so easily. The next morning, Kuze woke up, and strangely, Yuki didn't call him as usual. Thinking he had upset her, he got worried. Suddenly, Yuki popped out from under the bed, scaring him. Stuck, she asked for help, and Kuzi, seeing a chance to get back at her teasing, pushed her back in, laughing. Meanwhile, Elisa was already in the classroom, nervous about seeing Kuzi again after the kiss and her confession in Russian. Trying to appear calm, her heart sped up just thinking about him. Suddenly, Elisa noticed Kuz looked different that day. He didn't seem like his usual sloppy self. There was a sparkle in his eyes, an energy that made him look incredibly stylish. Elisa's heart raced, and she felt her face grow hot. She realized Kuz was making an effort to change, probably to help her become student council president. During volleyball practice, however, Kuz got hit in the head with the ball, groaning in pain. Yuki ran to check if he was okay, but Kuze, blushing, said he was just hot and needed to step out for a bit. Elisa, worried, reached out to feel his forehead, thinking he might have a fever. But Kuze, distracted, couldn't help but notice her cleavage, becoming even more flustered. "Go drink some water, Kuze," Elisa said, trying to cover it up. He went, but was hypnotized watching Elisa drink water in a way that unintentionally looked seductive. Completely embarrassed, Kuze buried his face in the sink, trying to compose himself. At that moment, Maria arrived and saw Kuze's wet head. Grabbing a towel, she began drying him gently, but Kuze, accidentally, ended up noticing her cleavage too. Annoyed, Elisa pulled Kuze back to the classroom, telling Maria to go to her own class. He thought he was about to get scolded, but Elisa, in a surprisingly soft tone, asked, "Are you okay?" Kuze was confused by her kindness, which reminded him of the previous night, when she kissed him and confessed her feelings in Russian. Explaining that he had skipped breakfast because he overslept, Kuzi saw Elisa grow furious. She hadn't slept a wink, thinking about what had happened between them, and he seemed not to care. Upset, Elisa stomped out, while Kuz, strangely, found it amusing, thinking she had returned to her usual explosive self. Later, at the student council, Elisa was still sulking at Kuze. Suddenly, the baseball team came running by, startled, and they saw an intimidating girl in the room. It was Chisaki, the vice president. She explained that she was just scaring the baseball and soccer clubs because of the previous day's mess. Kuzi had already heard rumors that Chisaki was tough, but Kenzaki laughed, saying she only used intimidation to keep order. Deep down, Kuzi found Chisaki kind of cute. Maria took the chance to tease Kenzaki and Chisaki, who were always flirting in the office, lightening the mood. Yuki arrived, and the meeting began. Kenzaki announced that Kuze was officially a council member and needed to accompany the others to learn the roles. Yuki then said she needed to go to the art club and asked Elisa to go with her. Kuze, watching the two leave, felt a tightness in his chest, as if something was wrong. Elisa, wanting to talk privately with Yuki, took her to an empty room. There, she declared she would run for president against Kuze, but Yuki was unfazed. What irritated her was that Kuze hadn't chosen her to support. "Why did you want him to choose you?" Elisa asked, confused. Yuki, with a mischievous smile, revealed, "Because I love him." Elisa was shocked. "You love Kuze too, don't you, Aaliyah?" Yuki teased, using the nickname Kuzi had given Elisa. Not knowing what to say, Elisa, blushing furiously, declared, "I won't let you have him!" Yuki found it amusing and said she would also call Elisa Aaliyah, leaving her even more flustered. Meanwhile, Kuze was working with Maria, noticing how efficient she was, unlike Chisaki, who was clumsy and always needed Kenzaki's help. Maria prepared tea for everyone, and Kuze asked curiously, "In Russia, you drink tea more in the winter, right?" Maria laughed, saying it depended on the person, since her family drank tea all year round. Surprised by Kuzi's knowledge, she asked how he knew so much. He deflected, saying he had learned it from his grandfather's movies, but in reality, he wanted to impress the Russian girl from his childhood. Maria's tea reminded Kuze of his mother, who also loved tea, bringing a wave of nostalgia. When Yuki and Elisa returned, Elisa pulled up a chair and sat right next to Kuze, surprising him. He realized something had happened between the two of them. After the meeting, Kuzi and Elisa went home together. Wanting to understand what had happened, he invited her to a restaurant. "Did Yuki do something to you?" he asked. Elisa, evasive, didn't answer. Kuzi insisted, "It's obvious she said something to you." Suddenly, Elisa asked, "Are you dating Yuki?" Kuzi denied it immediately, explaining that Yuki loved teasing others. Changing the subject, they began planning the campaign for the presidency. Kuzi warned that Elisa had little chance against Yuki, who in middle school had made other candidates drop out with her charisma. Irritated, Elisa thought they were there for a date, not to talk strategy. Determined to get Kuzi's attention, she grabbed a spoonful of ice cream and fed him, leaving him red with embarrassment. The gesture, almost an indirect kiss, made the other customers at the restaurant stare in surprise. Returning to the plan, Kuze suggested Elisa imitate Kenzaki, who had won the election in middle school without being on the council, thanks to a journalism club article that highlighted his transformation. "You need a story that wins people over," Kuze said. Elisa, still shy from the ice cream, agreed, but they both kept staring at their spoons, embarrassed. Kuze quickly ordered more food to break the mood. At the restaurant, Kuze, curious, asked, "In Russia, is this indirect kiss thing common?" Elisa, with a shy smile, replied in Russian, "I only do that with you." Kuzi's heart raced, but he quickly noticed the steaming dish in front of him. "Try it, Elisa, it looks great," he suggested excitedly. Then, he remembered that Elisa couldn't handle spicy food well. Stubborn, she didn't want to admit defeat and tried the dish, even though she knew she'd suffer. The burning exploded in her mouth, but Elisa, proud, pretended she was fine. As they left, with watery eyes, she still insisted she could handle spice, while Kuzi held back his laughter. On the way, Elisa asked, "If you're helping me with the campaign, who will support Yuki?" Kuze thought of Sayaka, who had already faced Yuki in the middle school election, but ended up giving up and crying a lot. "Yuki's tough. She'll find a way," he said, trying to reassure her. The next morning, Yuki introduced her supporter, surprising Kuze. It was Ayano, who treated him with almost solemn respect. Later, Ayano pulled Kuze aside for a private conversation. With a serious tone, she revealed that Kuzi's decision to support Elisa had displeased the head of the Suo clan. Kuze, who had abandoned the clan's surname and cut ties, couldn't even be called Yuki's brother anymore. Ayano, as Yuki's servant, didn't want anyone to hurt her master, but Kuze firmly said he would support Elisa, asking Ayano to tell Yuki's grandfather that he would take full responsibility. Yuki is still the most important person to me, he confessed, asking Ayano to fully support Yuki. Relieved, Ayano nodded and left. Meanwhile, Kuzi was talking with his best friend Takeshi, who was flipping through a magazine and asked him to pick a girl. Kuzi pointed to one who by chance resembled Maria. Takeshi laughed. "It's obvious your type is Maria. You're always together." Before Kuze could explain, Elisa appeared, furious. "Kuze, you're on the student council. You need to set an example," she scolded, confiscating the magazine. Takeshi, teasing, asked if Kuze wanted to date Maria, but he deflected. "I prefer someone who's like a friend, with a cute smile." Hearing this, Elisa grew jealous, thinking he was talking about someone else, and stomped off. Later, Ayano told everything to Yuki, who was touched by Kuze's determination. "You like him, don't you?" Yuki asked. Ayano, serious, said she only respected him and that her feelings would never interfere with her work. Impressed, Yuki thought Ayano was like a super maid. When Ayano mentioned that Kuze saw Yuki as the most important person, she lit up, deciding to face Elisa with everything in the election, even knowing Elisa's chances of winning were slim. In a card game, Yuki and Elisa were competing. Yuki won easily since Elisa's emotions were far too transparent. Maria, on the other hand, was a mystery. No one could predict her moves. Kenzaki, surprised, discovered that Ayano had been Yuki's family servant since 5th grade, trained by her grandparents, who had also served the household. "She does everything without making a sound," Yuki praised, impressed. Meanwhile, Maria called Kuze to buy sodas. Thanking him for supporting Elisa, she confessed that she never showed her serious side to her sister because she loved Elisa's determination. "You're like Yuki, pretending to be laid back, but you have a hidden side," Maria said, ruffling Kuze's hair, leaving him red with embarrassment. He admitted that he liked a quiet life, so he pretended to be lazy to avoid drawing attention. The next morning, Sayaka showed up to talk to Elisa. Knowing that Sayaka had already faced Yuki in middle school, Elisa was surprised when she accused her of using dirty tactics to have Kuze at her side. Kuze rushed to clarify, "I was the one who decided to help Elisa." To everyone's surprise, Sayaka challenged Kuze to a debate at the council assembly, clearly intending to eliminate him from the election. Elisa, outraged by Sayaka's disrespectful comments about Kuze, declared that she would also be her rival, leaving Sayaka uncomfortable. While preparing the topic for the debate, Kenzaki thought they wouldn't gain anything from it, but Elisa was determined. "If I beat Sayaka, my chances against Yuki will increase. And I want her to apologize to Kuze for speaking about him like that," she said, fire in her eyes. Seeing her passion, Kuze was impressed. Suddenly, Elisa asked, "You two hate each other, right? She wants to kick you out of the election." Kuze denied it, explaining that Sayaka only saw him as sloppy, especially for supporting Elisa instead of Yuki, who was the favorite. Feeling guilty, Elisa promised, "I'll do my best, Kuze." The next morning, they met Nonoa, a new piece on the board, ready to stir the election game even more. Nonoa introduced herself as Sayaka's ally, and Kuze quickly noticed that despite being close friends, their personalities were very different. Nonoa had vibrant energy and an impressive network of contacts at school, which made her a formidable opponent. The student council assembly was about to begin, and Elisa's stomach churned with anxiety. The buzz around was that Sayaka would win easily. That's when Kuze showed up with a teasing smile. "Aaliyah, your bra is cup E, right?" Elisa turned red as a beet, but Kuze laughed, explaining, "Calm down, I just want to help you relax. Your enemy is the perfect version of yourself. Just see yourself as the most amazing and go crush it. If something goes wrong, I'll cover for you." His words sparked a flame in Elisa, restoring her confidence. The debate began, and Sayaka stepped on stage with overwhelming confidence, presenting solid arguments, clearly with Nonoa's help. Kuze noticed the challenge, but it was Elisa's turn. Remembering Kuze's advice, she spoke firmly, captivating the audience. Kuze watched proudly, seeing the chances balance out 50-50. When Sayaka tried to destabilize her with sharp questions, Elisa responded with confidence, surprising everyone. Kuze noticed that Sayaka made a mistake. She focused on attacking him when the true opponent was Elisa. Suddenly, whispers in the audience pointed out that Elisa was a foreigner, an attempt by Nonoa to shake her confidence. Elisa hesitated, unsure how to react. Kuze quickly patted her on the back and whispered, "Leave it to me." Stepping onto the stage, he explained that Elisa was thirsty and needed a break. Then, with a light tone, he used Kenzaki as an example. He used to be a shy, boring guy, but he worked hard, changed, and became president. The audience burst into laughter, and the atmosphere shifted. Nobody cared about Elisa's origin anymore. Sayaka, out of arguments, was left speechless and ran off stage. Elisa, impulsively, ran after her, surprising everyone. Nonoa, recognizing defeat, surrendered, and the assembly ended. Alone, Sayaka remembered the election against Yuki in middle school. She thought Yuki and Kuze were the perfect pair and accepted her defeat to her, but she couldn't stomach Kuze supporting Elisa, feeling betrayed. When Elisa caught up with her, she accused her of causing a rift between Yuki and Kuze. Confronted, Sayaka realized her jealousy was selfish. Nonoa arrived, asking Elisa to let her take care of Sayaka. Before leaving, Elisa said, "I'll do everything to make you respect me, Sayaka." Meanwhile, Yuki, confident, thought Kuze had no chance against her. That afternoon, Elisa told Kuze she would prove that he had made the right choice by supporting her, but she still didn't understand why he chose her and not Yuki. Kuze opened his heart. In middle school, I helped Yuki out of guilt. I chose to live with my dad and left her with our mom. I was just a puppet vice president. Now, I want to choose my own path and stand by your side, Alia. Elisa, touched, murmured in Russian, "Because it's you." Then, with a teasing smile, she asked about that cup E. Kuze, embarrassed, was speechless, and she laughed, saying in Russian, "Almost got it right." Meanwhile, Yuki had dinner with her grandfather, who had heard about the debate and warned her, "Don't lose, no matter who the opponent is." Yuki's mother, quieter, asked if she and Kuze were still close. Relieved to know they were, she smiled. In her room, Yuki hugged Ayano, seeking strength to face Elisa. The next morning, everyone congratulated Kuze and Elisa for their victory at the assembly, but mocked Sayaka for having run away. Elisa, uncomfortable, called Kuze to talk in private. "I don't want them to talk about Sayaka like that. We have to restore her honor," she insisted. Kuze warned that this could weaken their efforts, but seeing Elisa's determination, he gave in, which moved her. Suddenly, Kuze noticed someone in the room and, seeing Elisa approaching, thought she was going to kiss him. Nervous, he called Kanzaki and Chisaki, making Elisa, embarrassed, run off. Kuze then went to talk to Nonoa privately. She teased him, thinking it was a confession, but he explained that he wanted to help Sayaka regain her reputation. Nonoa was surprised, realizing that Elisa had also noticed the problem. Kuze saw that Nonoa used others for her goals, which left her with no friends except Sayaka. Together, they planned a plausible excuse for Sayaka's escape. Suddenly, Yuki and Ayano appeared, having overheard everything. Elisa arrived soon after, and seeing Kuze with Yuki, grew furious, her jealousy speaking louder. Meanwhile, Nonoa remembered when Sayaka scolded her for kissing a boyfriend in class and slapped her, accusing her of selling herself. The memory shook her, but she returned to the room, determined to go ahead with the plan to help Sayaka. Nonoa stepped on stage and announced that Sayaka had run from the assembly because she discovered that she herself had set up a trap in the debate, trying to manipulate the situation. This eased the pressure on Sayaka but didn't fully convince Elisa. While Kuze tried to explain that his meeting with Yuki was by chance, Elisa, still suspicious of their closeness, crossed her arms, skeptical. To change the mood, Kuze invited her to study together. Sitting in the library, Elisa sat so close that Kuze's heart raced. Suddenly, Yuki and Ayano arrived, and Yuki suggested studying together. Elisa, reluctant, eventually gave in. Watching Kuze, Elisa noticed that he only memorized answers without following a clear method. "How do you study like that?" she asked, confused. Yuki, laughing, said, "He's always been like that, right, Ayano?" The servant nodded, seeming to understand Kuze perfectly, which left Elisa intrigued. Are they really just childhood friends? She thought, with a pang of jealousy. Maria appeared with a tray of tea and a book about hypnosis. Excited, she wanted to test it on Kuze, but to everyone's surprise, she was the one who fell into a trance when Kuze, jokingly, tried to hypnotize her. Yuki, amused, suggested he try it on Elisa. Against all expectations, Elisa was also hypnotized. Excited, Yuki asked them both to free body and mind. In an instant, Elisa began taking off her clothes, leaving Kuze in a panic. "This has gone too far," he shouted, while he and Yuki tried to undo the trance without success. Chisaki arrived, saw the mess, and with a firm slap, woke them both up. Realizing they were missing some clothes, Elisa and Maria were mortified. Furious, Chisaki glared at Kuze. "You saw everything, didn't you? I'll erase you too." Kuze barely escaped. At night, Kuze tried to study, but the urge to watch anime was strong. Elisa called, worried. "Are you alone?" That way you won't have the motivation to study. She proposed a bet. If Kuze ranked among the top 30 in the class, she would fulfill any wish of his. If he failed, he would fulfill one of her requests. Kuze, excited, agreed immediately. 5 days later after the test, Kuze invited Alisa to walk home together. He noticed she was acting strange, not speaking in Russian as usual. Upset, Alisa confessed that she was hurt because Kuze hadn't invited her to his birthday. He explained, embarrassed, "I've never had a birthday party." Alisa, surprised, said, "In Russia, not knowing a friend's birthday is like saying you don't want the friendship anymore." To make it right, Kuz promised to organize a party, which made Alisa radiant. The next day, they went out together to celebrate. Alisa, stunning, drew everyone's eyes, but she rejected the boys who approached her by speaking in Russian, scaring them off. Kuze, amused, decided to pretend to be her boyfriend, which made Alisa blush. "It's my first date," she admitted shyly. At the restaurant, Kuze explained how the election ceremony would work. The candidates would give speeches, and the audience would applaud their favorite. "Yuki will get more applause," he warned. "Speak first, Aliyah, to set the tone and reduce her impact." Still nervous, Alisa agreed. To lighten the moment, she offered Kuz food with her spoon, leaving him red with embarrassment. As a gift, Alisa gave him a beautiful mug, revealing that she kept the other half of the pear at home. The next day, at the student council, Kenzaki asked for ideas for summer uniforms. Maria served tea, and after the meeting, Kuze helped her wash the mugs, apologizing for the hypnosis incident. Embarrassed, Maria asked, "You saw everything, didn't you?" She got angry, but Kuze found her anger adorable. Maria's mother called, asking her to bring the teapot home, and Kuze offered to help. Alone with him, Yuki returned to being the mischievous little sister, complaining that Kuze wasn't paying her attention. Before he could respond, his grandfather called, saying he was at school. When they arrived, Kuze laughed at his grandfather dressed like a movie mobster. The grandfather was delighted to meet Alisa because of his passion for Russian culture, and to Kuze's embarrassment, he said, "Aliyah, be my grandson's bride." Kuze interrupted him immediately. On the way out, they met Kuze's mother. He grew tense, remembering that she never valued his achievements, which drove him to work so hard. Suddenly, Kuze woke up, feverish. Yuki explained to Alisa that he had caught a cold, and she, worried, went to visit him, bringing a bit of warmth to Kuze's heart. Alisa entered Kuze's room and felt a masculine scent that intrigued her. Worried about his fever, she went to the kitchen to prepare warm soup. Kuze, still dizzy, found the food delicious. "Where are your parents?" Alisa asked. "My dad's at work, it's just me here," Kuze replied, exhausted. After taking the medicine, he fell asleep. When he woke up, he thought Alisa had left, but found her face-to-face with Ayano, who had also come to take care of him. With a firm tone, Ayano suggested that Alisa go home to prepare for the next day, leaving her uncomfortable. Reluctantly, Alisa said goodbye. Ayano cared for Kuze attentively, to the point of wanting to dry him off and even lie beside him. Embarrassed, Kuze sent her to Yuki's room. The next morning, already recovered, he noticed Ayano had skipped school to stay with him. When he picked up the medicine, he found it strange. It was a sleeping pill. Yuki's plan, he thought, running to school, where Yuki and Alisa would have a debate. Arriving, Yuki confessed that she had lost the debate. The night before, she had told Alisa about Kuze's fever, gave her the prescription for the medicine, and convinced her to take part in a broadcast the next day. Yuki revealed that she had set up the debate with Sayaka and challenged Alisa, knowing Kuze, sick, couldn't help. Alisa, not wanting to pressure him, accepted the challenge alone. Before the broadcast, Yuki opened her heart. She had an older brother, talented, heir to the Suo clan, but he was no longer there, and she had to take his place. The story shook Alisa, who, empathetic, lost focus and failed in the broadcast. Kuze, realizing Yuki's manipulation, comforted Alisa. "We still have the graduation ceremony. You always give your best, Aliyah. You won't fall behind Yuki." The words, almost a confession, reignited Alisa's spirit, and she smiled, feeling her heart warm. Nonoa and Sayaka appeared, and Sayaka humbly apologized for insulting Kuze. Alisa and Kuze forgave her, and Sayaka, understanding why Kuze had chosen Alisa, promised to support them in the election. Kuze saw there a chance for victory. While Alisa practiced her speech, Kuze praised her skill, but warned, "The auditorium will be packed tomorrow, you need to stay focused." Curious, Alisa asked, "How do I speak as well as you?" Kuze taught her a trick to relax. Yuki arrived, provoking them, but Kuze retorted, laughing, That's the real Yuki, Aaliyah. He warned she would lose, creating a tense atmosphere. Kenzaki's group arrived, suggesting a coin toss to decide who would speak first. Yuki wanted to flip, but Kuze, suspicious, asked Maria to do it. Determined to win by a wide margin, Yuki needed to go first, but Elisa chose the wrong side of the coin, giving Yuki the advantage. Yuki, however, realized that Kuze was distracting her. The real target was Elisa. Even so, she decided to go up first. On election day, Yuki shone, promising benefits that excited the audience, who applauded her fervently. Maria, worried, looked at Elisa. When her turn came, Elisa heard whispers in favor of Yuki, but she stood firm. She started speaking in Russian, surprising everyone, who laughed because they didn't understand. It was Kuze's plan: grab attention to divert focus from Yuki. Then, Elisa gave her official speech, confident, sharing her flaws and her determination never to give up. Inspired by Kuze's advice, she expressed her desire to be president, winning unexpected applause. Kuze took the stage, drawing laughter with his laid-back style. He admitted that Elisa's speech might have seemed clumsy, but he supported her for her sincerity. If Elisa becomes president, Sayaka and Nonoa will also be in the council, he announced, surprising everyone. The audience applauded enthusiastically. That's the applause you earned, Aaliyah, Kuze said. Sayaka and Nonoa, playing their part, stepped out, while Yuki realized she had lost. After checking the grades, Kuze saw that he hadn't placed among the top 30, losing the bet to Elisa. What's your request? He asked. Elisa, undecided, smiled. Kuze suggested, how about we call each other by our first names? Both, shy, blushed. With summer vacation approaching, they knew they still had next year's election to prepare for, but for now, they celebrated the victory and the bond forming between them.